What does it mean to vanish into thin air? Not from a dark alleyway or a deserted road, but from a brightly lit cruise ship filled with thousands of people, music, and laughter. That is the chilling question at the center of the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley, a young woman whose story continues to haunt investigators, her family, and anyone who has heard her name. Amy Lynn Bradley was born in 1974 in Petersburg, Virginia. To those who knew her, she was the kind of person who left a strong impression wherever she went. Athletic, sharp, and full of energy, Amy stood out for her determination and independent spirit. She had been a standout basketball player in college, attending Longwood University on a scholarship, where she also developed a love for sports psychology. After graduation, she was ready to begin a new chapter. She had recently secured an apartment of her own and lined up a new job. The cruise with her family was meant to be a relaxing getaway before she settled into adulthood responsibilities. Amy was close to her parents, Ron and Iva, and her younger brother, Brad. They were the type of family that enjoyed doing things together, and a Caribbean cruise aboard the Rhapsody of the Seas felt like the perfect way to celebrate milestones and enjoy each other's company. But beneath Amy's excitement lay an unease. Despite being a strong swimmer, she had worked as a lifeguard. Amy had always felt uncomfortable around open water. She agreed to go, but the vast ocean stretching endlessly on all sides made her uneasy. Still, on March 23, 1998, Amy seemed to embrace the adventure. The Bradleys enjoyed dinner, drinks, and the vibrant nightlife on board. At the ship's dance club, Amy and her brother Brad were seen laughing and dancing late into the night, joined at times by members of the ship's band, Blue Orchid. Those who saw her recalled a young woman radiating confidence and joy, fully alive in the moment. In the early hours of March 24th, Amy returned with her brother to the family's cabin. At around 5:30 a.m., her father, Ron, awoke and noticed Amy sitting on the balcony of their room, still awake, gazing out at the water. He later recalled that she seemed calm, even reflective. Moments later, he drifted back to sleep. By 6 a.m., Amy was gone. Her shoes and cigarettes remained in the cabin. Her bed was untouched. There was no sign of struggle, no indication of where she might have gone. In that narrow window of time, just 30 minutes, Amy Lynn Bradley had vanished without a trace. For her family, the nightmare began instantly. They searched the ship themselves, desperate to find her. Panic set in as they realized she had not simply gone for a walk. Amy wasn't the type to wander off carelessly. She had no reason to disappear. She had everything to look forward to: a career, independence, and a life she was just beginning to build. The suddenness of her disappearance, combined with the contained environment of the cruise ship, only deepened the mystery. How could someone vanish so completely in such a short span of time, surrounded by thousands of people, on a vessel miles away from shore? This was the last time Amy Lynn Bradley was ever seen by her family. What should have been an unforgettable vacation for all the right reasons became a lifelong tragedy and one of the most haunting unsolved cases of modern times. When Amy Lynn Bradley disappeared from the Rhapsody of the Seas, the initial assumption was that she might have gone overboard. Cruise ship authorities leaned on this explanation, suggesting she had accidentally fallen into the ocean in the early morning hours. But for Amy's family, this theory made no sense. Amy was a strong swimmer, a lifeguard who knew how to handle herself in the water. More importantly, she was terrified of the ocean. The idea that she would wander alone to the edge of the ship, lean too far, and topple into the dark waters didn't fit her personality or her cautious nature. For Ron and Iva Bradley, it was unthinkable. The night before her disappearance, Amy had been seen dancing with members of the ship's band, Blue Orchid, particularly with one of the musicians. Witnesses described the interaction as friendly but noticeable. Amy appeared to have drawn attention from some of the ship's staff. Later, her brother Brad recalled that one band member had approached him after Amy disappeared and made a strange remark: "I'm sorry to hear about your sister." This was said before the family had even gone public with their frantic search. That eerie comment only deepened the suspicion that something darker had happened. As investigators began piecing together the timeline, other unsettling details surfaced. Several passengers later reported seeing Amy in different areas of the ship in the early morning hours, though none of these sightings could be firmly verified. There were even unconfirmed accounts of crew members paying unusual attention to her the night before she went missing. The possibility that Amy had been targeted for human trafficking began to emerge. Cruise ships, with their constant movement from port to port, have long been criticized for the opportunities they present for predatory crimes. Amy's case, with its suddenness and lack of evidence, fit disturbingly well into this theory. Law enforcement involvement only added to the frustration. The FBI was eventually called in, but the Bradleys felt the cruise line's response in those critical first hours was inadequate. Instead of locking down the ship to search thoroughly, it continued toward Curaçao, allowing passengers and crew to disembark. If Amy had been taken, this window may have given perpetrators the opportunity to smuggle her off the ship unnoticed. The suspected perpetrators remained faceless, hidden in the crowd of vacationers and staff. Was it someone from the band, a crew member, or a stranger who spotted her vulnerability? Each theory seemed possible, and yet none could be proven. What haunted the Bradley family most was that Amy was not the type to run away. She had made plans for her future. She was close with her family. Her sudden disappearance felt deliberate, like someone had taken her, ripped her away from the safety of her cabin, and into the shadows. In the weeks and years that followed, disturbing clues would surface. Glimpses of Amy alive, seen in places she should never have been. These sightings would suggest that Amy's story did not end on that ship at all, but somewhere far darker. In the days following Amy Lynn Bradley's disappearance, her family clung to hope. The FBI became involved, and posters with Amy's face spread across Curaçao and beyond. But without solid leads, her case teetered dangerously close to being filed away as just another unsolved disappearance at sea. Then, little by little, whispers and sightings began to surface. Hints that Amy might still be alive. Not long after she vanished, reports trickled in from travelers who claimed to have seen a young woman resembling Amy. In 1999, nearly a year after her disappearance, a Canadian tourist reported seeing a distraught woman on a beach in Curaçao. The woman, she said, looked just like Amy. Same tattoos, same physical features, and appeared to be accompanied by two aggressive men. The tourist didn't know about Amy's case until she returned home and saw Amy's photo in the news. Around the same time, U.S. Navy Petty Officer David Carmichael reported an encounter that still chills investigators. He claimed he met a woman in a Curaçao brothel who told him her name was Amy Bradley and pleaded for help, explaining that she wasn't allowed to leave. He later swore under oath that he was certain it was Amy. His testimony, however, came months after the fact, and by then, any chance of rescuing her was lost. Perhaps the most disturbing development came in 2005, when the Bradley family received shocking images from an adult website. The photos showed a woman, alive but visibly distressed, in provocative poses. She bore a striking resemblance to Amy, down to her tattoos, including a sun on her lower back and a gecko on her ankle. For the Bradleys, it was devastating. To them, it was undeniable. This was Amy. The FBI investigated the images and acknowledged their authenticity as potential evidence. But tracking the source was nearly impossible. The photos were hosted on a foreign server with untraceable origins, and no physical trail led back to where the images had been taken. Once again, Amy seemed agonizingly close, yet unreachable. The consistency of these sightings, combined with the photos, strengthened one of the darkest theories surrounding Amy's disappearance, that she had been abducted and forced into human trafficking. Experts noted that cruise ships can be convenient hunting grounds for traffickers. A victim can be observed, targeted, and quickly removed during port stops, slipping into an underground world where they become invisible. Amy's case seemed to fit this disturbing pattern. She was young, attractive, and far from home. Some witnesses claimed to have seen her under the control of men, often described as intimidating or protective in ways that suggested coercion. For Amy's parents and brother, every sighting was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it fueled hope that Amy was alive. On the other, it deepened their torment, painting pictures of her trapped in a life of exploitation and fear. The thought that she might still be out there, suffering, but just beyond their reach was unbearable. Despite the FBI's involvement and the family's relentless efforts, no concrete rescue attempt ever succeeded. Every lead seemed to dissolve into dead ends, whether through jurisdictional obstacles, delayed reports, or lack of evidence. By 2010, a court officially declared Amy Lynn Bradley legally dead, though her family never stopped searching. Even after that, alleged sightings continued. Some swore they saw her walking with men in different Caribbean islands. Others insisted she was still alive, trapped, but waiting for a chance to escape. For the public, these scattered clues transformed Amy's disappearance from a tragic accident into one of the most gripping true crime mysteries in modern times. Was Amy still alive, fighting for survival in the shadows of a criminal underworld? Or had her trail gone cold long ago, with the sightings and photos serving only as cruel false hope? Amy Lynn Bradley's disappearance has always felt different from the thousands of missing persons cases reported each year. She was not a runaway. She had no history of reckless behavior or secrecy. She was not in financial distress, nor was she in conflict with her family. In fact, she had just graduated, secured a new apartment, and was preparing to begin a promising job. Amy's future was opening up before her, and then it was stolen away. The question that has haunted investigators and her family is simple. Why Amy? On the surface, Amy was an ideal target. At 23 years old, she was independent, attractive, and athletic. She was cautious but open enough to engage with others. On a cruise ship, a self-contained world with limited oversight, her visibility may have drawn the attention of the wrong people. Witnesses recalled how members of the ship's band had danced with her that night. Some even noted she seemed to be watched by crew members. In an environment where passengers and staff mingle freely, it's all too easy for someone to single out a potential victim. One of the strongest theories is that Amy was abducted and sold into human trafficking. Cruise ships, moving between international waters and foreign ports, can create perfect opportunities for such crimes. Victims can be removed discreetly, with little accountability, and quickly hidden in unfamiliar territory. Experts believe traffickers often look for individuals who are away from their home environments, where they might not be missed immediately. Amy fit that profile. She was on vacation, surrounded by strangers, and visible in public areas of the ship. For those who prey on vulnerable women, she may have been seen as a catch. The photographs received by the Bradley family in 2005 only strengthened this theory. The images suggested she had been forced into sexual exploitation. If true, her abduction was not a crime of passion or accident. It was calculated, premeditated, and part of a larger network of organized crime. Whoever took Amy, if indeed she was abducted, likely operated with planning and precision. Criminal psychologists suggest that such offenders often blend seamlessly into their surroundings, appearing trustworthy, even friendly, while harboring predatory intent. In Amy's case, if a crew member or band member was involved, it would have been easy for them to build casual trust. They could watch her habits, know when she would be alone, and act during a small window of opportunity. Their dual nature, smiling in public, yet hiding sinister motives, fits the classic profile of predators who exploit moments of vulnerability. If, on the other hand, Amy was taken by an external trafficking network waiting at port, her disappearance might have been facilitated by someone inside the ship staff. This scenario paints a chilling picture. An organized system where insiders identify and isolate victims, then hand them off to outsiders for profit. Looking back, Amy's parents recall moments that now feel like red flags. Amy herself had expressed discomfort with certain crew members who she felt were paying too much attention to her. At the time, it seemed harmless, maybe even flattering. In hindsight, it may have been early signs of grooming, a way for perpetrators to lower her guard before striking. These small details illustrate how easily such crimes can unfold in plain sight. What appears to be friendliness can mask predatory intentions. What feels like chance encounters can be deliberate steps in a plan. Amy's case highlights an unsettling truth about human trafficking. Victims are often chosen not because of who they are, but because of what they represent. To traffickers, Amy was young, attractive, and valuable. To her family, She was irreplaceable. A daughter, a sister, a friend. The contrast between how she was seen by those who loved her and those who may have exploited her is one of the most tragic elements of the story. For the Bradleys, the psychological torment was unbearable. The possibility that Amy was still alive, trapped, and waiting to be found was both hope and torture. Each new lead carried the weight of salvation or despair. Each unanswered question deepened their grief. The disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley was not just a story of one young woman lost at sea. It was the unraveling of a family's life, the breaking of trust in institutions, and a mystery that continues to echo decades later. For Ron and Iva Bradley, and their son Brad, the nightmare never ended. From the very moment Amy vanished, they were consumed by a desperate search, first on the ship, then across islands, and later through the countless leads that surfaced over the years. Their grief was not just in losing Amy, but in the agonizing uncertainty of how they lost her. Unlike families who can eventually bury their loved ones and find closure, the Bradleys were forced to live in limbo. Every sighting, every rumor, every photograph kept hope alive, but also ripped open the wound again. The possibility that Amy was alive, but trapped in a terrifying world they could not reach, was a torment far worse than finality. Her brother Brad later spoke about the crushing guilt he carried, wishing he had stayed with her longer that night, wondering if he could have prevented what happened. Her parents described the pain as indescribable, a wound that never healed. Their fight for answers became their life's mission, even as the years passed and Amy's case grew colder. Amy's disappearance sent ripples far beyond her family. In her hometown of Chesterfield County, Virginia, friends and neighbors struggled to process how a bright, ambitious young woman could vanish on what was supposed to be a safe family vacation. For many, the case shattered the illusion that cruise ships and vacations were immune to real-world dangers. The story also sparked wider conversations about the vulnerabilities of cruise travel. Families began questioning the security protocols of cruise lines, and Amy's case became one of the examples often cited when pushing for stricter regulations and accountability in international waters. What truly happened to Amy Lynn Bradley remains one of the great unanswered mysteries in true crime. Did she fall overboard in a tragic accident, despite all evidence suggesting otherwise? Was she lured or forced from her cabin and taken off the ship? Were the alleged sightings real glimpses of her, or painful coincidences that only prolonged her family's suffering? The photographs from 2005 remain one of the most disturbing clues. To many, they are undeniable proof that Amy was alive years after she disappeared, proof that she had been trafficked. But without definitive evidence, the FBI and law enforcement could not act. The Bradleys were left with haunting images but no path to rescue. By 2010, Amy was declared legally dead. Yet, her name remains on the FBI's missing persons list, and a reward is still offered for information leading to her recovery or the arrest of those responsible. For her family, that designation is not just paperwork. It is recognition that Amy's story is not closed, that someone, somewhere, still knows the truth. Today, more than 2 decades later, Amy's case continues to appear in documentaries, podcasts, and true crime investigations. Each retelling brings new eyes, new theories, and perhaps new hope that answers might one day emerge. Her story has become more than just a mystery. It is a cautionary tale about vulnerability, trust, and the hidden dangers lurking even in places designed for joy and escape. The disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley is not only a mystery about how a young woman vanished. It is a reflection of the fragility of human life and the cruelty of those who prey on the unsuspecting. It is about a family shattered but unbroken in their pursuit of truth. And it is about the questions that will never stop echoing. What happened to Amy? Could she still be alive? And if so, why has no one been able to bring her home? Her story ends not with closure, but with lingering shadows. Shadows that continue to haunt, to disturb, and to remind us of the darkness that can exist behind even the brightest smile. If you've made it this far, please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out when we post true crime stories. Also, leave your thoughts in the comments so others can learn.